It's time to feel what you've been bottling up. Life in rural America isn't easy. The long hours, the constant pressures, the demands of the land, livestock, and family, it all takes a toll. We're tough and we've got grit, but somewhere along the way, toughness started meaning bottling up emotions and powering through. But here's the truth. That strategy, it's not working and it's poisoning us. Maybe you've noticed and maybe you haven't, but the numbers don't lie. We're breaking down and it's showing up in our bodies, our relationships, and in the rising suicide rates in agriculture. You don't have to carry any of it alone. There's another way. If you're ready to stop being weighed down and start moving forward, my one-on-one good movement guidance is now open. Visit the link in the show notes to learn more and see if one-on-one guidance could be for you.
I'll carry you, you carry me, we'll help each other through it. Come on and see, good movement draws good movement.
Welcome to Good Movement Draws Good Movement, the podcast where farmers, ranchers, and rural folks can grow relationally through awareness, understanding, and effective communication. Hey, it's T. I'm your host, and I, along with my guests, will be covering topics related to drawing good movement. Things like self and social awareness, brain science, positive psychology, extending grace, and so much more. We'll share tools that can help you understand why you are the way you are, why others are the way they are, and how you can use that to step out of self-told lies with grace and compassion to draw good movement in conversations, relationships, and life in rural America. Let's go draw good movement. Welcome back to the Good Movement Draws Good Movement podcast. This episode is part 2 of 2 with Kelly Greene, and we're picking up right where we left off last week. So if you haven't listened to part 1, go do that and then come back. So I want to go back to something you said when you were going through the 8 pillars. And you said, I'm going to come back to finding meaning and purpose. And I want to come back to that because a couple recent episodes of this podcast, I was talking about how pain is not a bug, it's a feature of life. And recently consumed David Kessler's Finding Meaning, the 6th Stage of Grief. So let's go back to finding meaning.
It's my absolute favorite pillar. If I had to pick one and say this is where you needed, like, if you had to put all your cookies in a basket, this is the one. And is it enough? No, but it's that important that it should be where we, all of us put some time. So when I was first starting to deal with the traumatic experiences in my early childhood, I started reading books by Holocaust survivors. I did not endure the Holocaust. I am not Jewish. I don't have a history of that. But it was kind of this thing of all right, there are people who went through this absolutely unimaginable, horrific situation. Horrific on all levels. They were afraid for their life. They were watching people die. They were, being hurt in every way, mentally, physically, every way these people were being brutalized. And some people came out of this, and I don't mean okay, they weren't affected. I mean, they were functional. Right? If you could go to Auschwitz or any of those death camps and come out and function in the world, that's remarkable. So I started reading a lot. I read Viktor Frankl, everything pretty much Viktor Frankl wrote. I read Elie Wiesel. I read Edith Eger, Olivia Benton-Jackson, and especially Viktor Frankl spoke to me so much because Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist before he went into the death camps. And what he writes about in his book called Man's Search for Meaning, which I recommend to everybody on the planet, and I reread this book every year. Every January, I reread this book. Because what got him through and what he taught afterwards, after he got out of death camps, was that finding meaning and purpose in every day is what not only helped him to survive, but also helped him to be functional. When he lost his parents, he lost his wife, who was pregnant with their first child and only child, in a death camp. He himself was, at death's door. He, witnessed countless atrocities. He was very intentional in finding meaning and purpose every single day. One of my favorite poets is a lady who's now passed away, but her name was Mary Oliver. And she wrote a poem, and I think the name of the poem is The Uses of Sorrow. But the poem is, someone I once loved gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to understand that this too was a gift. And when I first read that poem, I didn't understand it because I had been handed a box full of darkness and I didn't quite understand the gift in it. And like her, it took me years to understand. But once I finally did, the gift wasn't necessarily what happened. It's that because I went through what I went through, because of the gross amounts of pain, the gift was a new and elevated understanding and capacity to find meaning and purpose. Without it, I might have been 80 before I understood it. Instead I was 40 when I really first understood the importance of meaning and purpose and finding meaning and having something that's meaningful to you and having a purpose to get up every day. And it doesn't have to be, meaning and purpose has nothing to do with changing the world. A lot of folks, especially in entrepreneurial worlds, I'll just say, are like, what is your purpose today? How much money you're going to make? How are you going to get a win? How are you going to get, improve your bottom line? That sort of stuff. I'm not saying it can't be your purpose, but it's rarely a real purpose. Like finding a purpose, and it can be, my purpose is to be a really great mom, or to, in this way, I'm finding meaning in caring for my cat. Meaning and purpose doesn't have to be on some grand global scale. It doesn't even have to be on a community scale. It can be granular, but having meaning and purpose for living and breathing is vital to functioning after horrific circumstances. So in all of the Holocaust survivors, like writings from Holocaust survivors that came out were really functional. Edith Eger's one, she's still alive. She's got a social media account. I follow her. She's just remarkable. And she talks about the gift of pain all the time and finding forgiveness and forgiving her transgressors. But that was what pulled these people through and what helped them to actually lead good lives, happy, functional, not just an existence as, a shell of a person, like full lives. So to me, the most important of all of those factors is the ability to find meaning and purpose. And in my study that I conducted it within a veteran population. And it was important to me to study this in a veteran population because my grandfather was a veteran. He was in the Army. He was in World War II. I have a big heart for folks who have made these massive sacrifices and go to the military and fight for other people's freedom. Big heart for those folks. So that was number one. Number two is that you're not going to find anyone in the military that's not had a traumatic experience, right? So I was really able to kind of look, that everyone that I looked at in my study had traumatic experiences as an adult. And then I looked specifically at people who had also had traumatic experiences as a child. So I had a group of people who had had traumatic experiences as both children and adults, and a group of people who had only had traumatic experiences as an adult, did not have the childhood trauma piece. And all of those folks who had had both, so it was like this double whammy, right? You had all this massive stuff happen when you're little, and then you go into the war. You've got even more. It's just double up on top. That is a recipe for poor health, physiological health, and poor psychological health. Perfect storm for that. There were people who didn't have those. And I mean, an astounding, very significant number, all had the ability to find meaning and purpose in their life. They felt like they had meaning, they had purpose. Every day they woke up, they knew they were here for a reason. And that's what meaning and purpose is.
I love that so much. Do you think that it's possible to find meaning and purpose like immediately in the moment, or is it something that sometimes has to come after?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you are inside of a traumatic experience, it's going to be really difficult to find meaning and purpose inside of that moment. So cultivating resilience requires you to do the work beforehand. There's a difference in being resilient and hitting the bottom, not being resilient, and then having, what is called in research as traumatic growth. So the difference in resilience and post-traumatic growth is that if you're resilient, you had all the factors were healthy enough that you needed. So when you went through this traumatic event, you were able to withstand all of the effects, all the bad effects of that traumatic event. So you post-traumatic event, you come out and you don't have physical or psychological effects. Let's say that you don't go into it with that level of resilience and you have a traumatic event and it breaks you, right? And you're like that ball, and that ball, instead of bouncing back up, it flattened out and it just stayed down. You don't have the momentum of that ball bouncing to just easily get you back up, but you can most certainly get back up. You're just going to have to climb a ladder. You're going to have to do that work to get back up. So you're not in that moment going, this is meaningful. This is purposeful. I can totally see why I went through this. You are crawling, but as you're crawling up, you are cultivating the resilience you need for the next traumatic episode. So post-traumatic growth, growing from a traumatic experience that you were not resilient from, we all do that. We're not going to be resilient 100% of the time. I don't care if you work on these 8 every day. You are not going to be resilient 100% of the time because we're never going to be at 100% with these all the time. So there's going to be a time that we just get life smacks us down and we don't get back up. But when you're crawling back up that ladder, crawling out of that hole, if you're intentionally working on these, if you're intentionally looking for meaning and purpose, building cognitive and emotional flexibility, moving your body, getting some good habits, learning how to communicate better, finding a good social network, then you're building that, and that is going to imprint in your brain. You're going to build these beautiful neural networks so that the next time a traumatic episode hits, you've done all this work, and hey, you might not bounce back up as fast as you would like, but you're sure not crawling out the way you did before. And it just gets sort of easier and easier. But yeah, I mean, so can you find meaning and purpose inside of an episode? I think it's really hard unless you've done that work before. And then you can, because then you're not so much in your survival mode as strongly as you would be if you hadn't had those skills before.
You have the muscle mass to
100%. And that's why it's you don't want to work on, I want you to work on cultivating resilience all the time, but you don't work to cultivate resilience after a fact. I want folks to go, oh, I need to work on all of these now because I'm going to face trauma. I'm going to face traumatic experiences. I'm going to face something that's adverse in my life that's going to challenge my physical health and my mental health. So I want to have my deck stacked up so that I've got a better chance of functioning in that really healthy and vibrant way after. It is so short-sighted to think you're never going to face a traumatic experience. And if people feel like they've never faced a traumatic experience, it's probably because they are masters at cognitive flexibility. So they were able to reappraise a situation super fast. But that'll always catch up with you, We've all experienced them. And so it's interesting, talking with folks and learning what, some people feel like that they have experienced a lot of trauma, and some people feel like I've not experienced any trauma. And it's interesting to break that apart with folks and go what? How do you define that? And a lot of times, again, it kind of goes back when I'm talking about these opposite sides of the pendulum. A lot of people who are really strong, cognitively flexible, and they're able to reframe and reappraise real fast. They're super gritty and they've not dealt with, all the other the emotional stuff and the interpersonal stuff and yada, yada, yada. But then you've got that other side of people and they're like, it's traumatic all the time. I'm just beat down all the time. It's all stuff always happens to me. Well, they have no cognitive flexibility. They can't reappraise or reframe anything. And they are just literally living inside of an emotional ball. And again, back to that balance. And it's hard to find meaning and purpose on either ends of those spectrum. And another place it's hard to find meaning and purpose, I would say all specifically, especially when you have chronic illness. I've got a big heart for, and I love working with folks with chronic illness specifically because I've dealt with chronic autoimmune issues my entire life. And when you're in pain all the time, you know what? It's really hard. It's hard to find meaning, purpose, and feel awe when you're hurting from head to toe all day long. And a lot of people are hurting from head to toe all day long. And when I sit down with them and I say, well, I want you to start experiencing awe, I think they just want to shoot me in the face. Are you serious? You want me to be awe-inspired? You want me to find meaning and purpose? This is where they want to cuss at me or hit me or leave. And it's such a difficult thing to ask someone that. And so I break it into tiny little increments to help them formulate that. But studies show that people who regularly experience awe have lower inflammatory responses, not chronic inflammatory responses, not lower just in general, but they don't have chronic inflammation. They don't have issues with chronic inflammation that people that don't experience awe. So we know that awe actually helps us be healthier. And when you're in a chronic illness, you are dealing with chronic inflammation. You've got lots going on inside your body. Your inflammatory or immune system is overreactive. That's what happens in autoimmune disease, right? It's an overreactive, maladaptive immune system. And so by experiencing awe, it actually will help regulate that. But it's really, you got to kind of break it into tinier chunks to help people get there because, it's difficult to feel bad and feel like everything is down and your life is falling apart and everybody hates you and, all the bad stuff happens to me. It's hard to go like, now I want you to go outside and find some awe. But it's like, you've got to learn that or you're going to live your whole life either feeling like a victim or, feeling helpless.
So what exactly is awe?
Yeah. So awe is an emotion. It is an emotion, but it's a more complex emotion. And it is the feeling that you get when you experience something that is both vast and beyond comprehension, yet somehow understandable. So you usually can tell it in your body because you'll get chills. You get those chills. For example, different people experience awe in different ways. Lots of folks will experience it in nature. They'll see something in nature that just blows their mind. There's a lot of research on awe. There's an entire book about awe somewhere in my pile. From the research on awe, most people, it shows that, and there's several studies, but one in particular that was looked at people from all across the world. And most people experience awe through observing moral beauty or kindness of other people. You see someone doing something really extraordinary for someone. And if you understand it, you can have knowledge about it. Like, for example, a rocket taking off. I feel awe I've never seen a rocket take off in person, but I'll watch them on TV just because I'm fascinated, right? I have the ability to understand the mechanisms of how rockets work and how it is propelled into space, right? But when it takes off, I'm awestruck because I'm like, somehow I don't understand it. Even though I've got knowledge around it, it's so beyond fascinating to me. In a moment of awe, you feel both like nothing but a grain of sand, but also simultaneously one of the most important grains of sand. It brings you into a place of community. It's more of a communal self versus when you experience awe, your focus is not on you. It is not a self sort of emotion. It's emotion that brings you outside of yourself. It makes you feel part of something bigger. So a lot of people feel awe at a concert, hearing a song that just moves them in like a more profound kind of way. That's called collective effervescence, where you're in a group of people. That can be at church or any type of religious gathering where there is a communal moment. It can be like through prayer as a communal moment. It can be in nature, like I was talking about, just walking and seeing something in nature where you're awestruck. A lot of people experience awe through art and design. They'll see something, architecture that just like blows their mind and they get those chills. So that's what awe is. It is a transcendent emotion. It transcends you out of self into us. And think about that. When you're transcending out of self to us, think about how helpful that would be for someone that is in chronic pain, but how difficult that is. Because when you're in pain, all you can think about is your pain, And that's also true for emotional pain. I've been in times in my life where I've had horrific tragedies happen and my emotions, I'm literally just in a ball of melancholy. I mean, I can't see out. Some people are like, you need to experience something amazing. You need awe. I wouldn't know what to do with that, except I have practiced it now. Like I actually go on walks where I look for awe. I'm way more cognizant of it. So it's kind of one of those things. It's like the more you do something, the more you find it, the more you start to experience the emotion of awe, the easier it is to find an experience. And so then you can more easily find it in situations. One of the most profound moments of awe in my life, and it's different for every person. This is not the truth for everyone. But I was with my grandfather, who is the greatest man in my world ever. I was with him when he passed away at 86. And I got to hold him while he took his last breaths. And I was in awe. Was I sad? Of course. Did I wish he wasn't going? Yeah. But I was able to see that moment for what it was, this amazing moment of transition that I got to be a part of that was nothing about me. I wasn't making the moment better. I wasn't making the moment worse. Nothing that was happening was dependent upon me. I wasn't responsible in any way, shape, or form. I was an observer of an amazing moment. And it was awesome.
Literally awesome.
Literally awesome. Literally.
I love that. And while you're talking about awe, I'm reflecting on like moments where I've felt awe, and most of mine are out in nature. But like when you were talking about songs, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. It's awesome.
No, I know, and we throw that word around. I mean, I do too. I'll be like, yeah, that's awesome, and it's not. But when you experience awe. And what I tell folks that I work with is, I want you to start recognizing it. And when you do, I want you to sit in it. Don't run away from it. It's a big emotion. It is a transcendent emotion. And people that are scared of emotion will run from it. They'll start to feel it and they're like, I don't like feelings. I'm running from it. Right? So if someone has a propensity to run from feelings, you have to really work on sitting inside of it. Because awe, it's a big emotion. Not everybody cries when they experience awe. Not everyone makes a big public display. I mean, I think you don't, because again, awe brings you outside of you. But it's important that when you start to experience it, that you sit in it. And the longer you can sit in it, it's healthier. And it'll also help you to sit in it and find it again and again and again.
Love that. So with that, now that we've had 2 episodes with Kelly, we went in thinking it was going to be 1, but I just made the decision that we're going to make it 2. But that's part 2 with my friend Kelly Greene. And we learned all about holistic resilience and finding meaning and awe. And I'm sure we will have Kelly back, provided she does more podcasts.
No, I know. I would much rather just write and hand people my writings or talk to them one-on-one. I love my one-on-one work.
Well, this is kind of one-on-one. I mean, people are listening into our conversation, but with that, you do coaching and you have classes. And so where can people find you?
So they can find me, I would say, first on the website, which is kellygreene.me. That's KELLYGREENE.me, kellygreene.me. I don't have kellygreene.com because somebody wants me to pay them $7,000 for it. So we'll kind of stick kellygreene.me.
And we'll put it in the show notes too.
Yeah. Okay, good. So there's the website. And then you can join on the website. You can learn about my one-on-one coaching, my group coaching, and also you can just join the email list, which is only one email about resilience a week. And that's it. I don't blow you up. And then if you do social media, you can find me on Instagram at kellygreene.me. And I'm going to start a Facebook professional page. Right now, it's just friend page. And you'll just get mostly pictures of my kid and animals. So I will create that and send that if you're a Facebooker. That'll be on the website too. But I think the website, you can find the social media on there too.
All the things are on the website.
All the things are on the website.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. And I'm honored that this was your first podcast guest appearance.
I'm so glad.
Well, until next time, draw a good movement. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm so grateful for you. If you found value in this episode, I'd love for you to share with others who might also benefit from tuning in. Share by word of mouth, send it in a text, take a screenshot and post it on social media, or share however you prefer. And if you haven't already, hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Until next time, draw good movement.